All right. Good evening. Hello, and welcome to a conversation with Derrick Barnes and Gordon C. James. My name is Alicia Lackey, and I work in Children's Services at Charlotte Mecklenburg Library. This evening, we are thrilled that each of you will share a portion of your evening with us. This program supports Charlotte Mecklenburg's library commitment to Black Lives Matter programming. Black Lives Matter programs provide a safe space for our community to discuss important issues related to racism, racial equity, and racial justice. These programs explore Black lives and experiences and provide access to quality resources and exposure to new perspectives. These programs give our community the educational tools to move toward racial equity and justice in Mecklenburg County. We are so excited to have with us tonight Derrick Barnes. Derrick Barnes wrote the New York Times bestsellers, The King of Kindergarten, I Am Every Good Thing, as well as the critically acclaimed and multi-award winning picture book Crown, an ode to the fresh cut, which received the Newbery Honor, a Coretta Scott King Honor, and the 2018 Ezra Jack Keats New Writer Award, and the 2018 Kirkus Prize for Young Readers. He also wrote the best-selling chapter book series, Ruby and the Booker Boys. Derrick is a graduate of Jackson State University. He's a native of Kansas City, Missouri, but he currently lives here in Charlotte with his wife, Dr. Tinka Barnes, and their 4 sons, Ezra, Solomon, Silas, and Namdi. We're also excited to welcome Gordon C. James. Gordon is the award-winning illustrator of Crown, an ode to the fresh cut, written by Derrick Barnes, for which Gordon received the Caldecott Honor, Coretta Scott King Honor, and Ezra Jack Keats Honor Awards, among others. Some of his other works include illustrations of Patricia McKissick's Scraps of Time series. As an award-winning fine artist, Gordon works to achieve the highest level of craftsmanship and beauty. Gordon was born in Washington, D.C., and he was raised in Fort Washington, Maryland, but he also lives here in Charlotte with his wife, Ingrid, and their 2 children, Astrid and Gabriel. So tonight we are going to be talking with these wonderful creators and these brilliant minds. And as we go through our presentation, we encourage everyone who's watching to please use our chat features, and we will try to answer as many questions as we can towards the end of our program. But if we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to ask Derrick if he will kick us off with a reading of I Am Every Good Thing.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Right. I Am Every Good Thing, written by Derrick Barnes and illustrated by Gordon C. James. This book is dedicated to the memories of Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, E.J. Bradford, Jordan Edwards, Michael Brown, Jordan Davis, and Julian Mallory. And Gordon dedicated the book to his son Gabriel, who was the cover model, and all little brothers like him. I am a non-stop ball of energy, powerful and full of light. I'm a go-getter, a difference maker, a leader. I am every good thing that makes the world go round. You know, like gravity or the glow of moonbeams over a field of brand new snow. I'm good to the core, like the center of a cinnamon roll. Yeah, that good. I am skateboard tricks, scrape knees and elbows. But you know what? I am right back on my feet again. I am one eye open, one eye closed, peeking through a microscope, gazing through a telescope, checking out the spaces around me and plotting out those far places I have yet to go. but will. I am a gentleman and a scholar. I'm kind and polite, like yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, helping my grandmother to cross the street and saying bless you when a stranger has to sneeze. I'm a cool breeze, a perfect paper airplane that glides for blocks, for miles, forever. I am a roaring flame of creativity. I'm a lightning round of questions and a star-filled sky of solutions. I'm an explorer planting a flag on every square foot of this planet where I belong. I'm a sponge soaking up information, knowledge, and wisdom. I want it all, and I am all ears. I am Saturday mornings in the summertime. I am two bounces and a front flip off the diving board. I am hilarious. I am the life of the party. I'm that smile forming on your face right now. I'm the boom bap, boom boom bap. When the bass line thumps and the kick drum jumps, I'm the perfect beat, the perfect rhyme, keeping everything on point and always on time. But you already knew that. I'm a grand slam, bases fully loaded. I'm a nasty two-handed dunk holding on to the rim just to remind you that I'm still the man. Believe that. I am the undisputed champion, a highlight reel of magnificence. I am the celebration, the applause, and the standing ovation. I am victory. I am a brother, a son, a nephew, a favorite cousin, a grandson. I am a friend. I am real. I am tight hugs and a hand to hold, a shoulder to cry on if you have to. I hope you never have to. I'm here. And although I'm something like a superhero, every now and then I am afraid. I am not what they might call me, and I would not answer to any name that is not my own. I am what I say I am. I am that sound in the forest when the mighty tree falls. I am waves crashing gently on the shore. I am a force of nature, a miracle, a blessing. I am brave. I am hope. I am my ancestors' wildest dream. I am worthy of success, of respect, of safety, of kindness, of happiness, and without a shadow of a doubt, I am worthy to be loved. I am worthy to be loved.
And here is the drawing. Let's see if I can get a good angle. There we
Oh,
go.
wow. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I don't know if you all know this, but Gordon is actually a fine artist. So you all just witnessed fine art in the making live. So that's quite a treat. Thank you so much, Derrick. That was just beautiful. And I feel like I should share that I am approaching this conversation from multiple levels. Of course, I work here at the library. I work in children's services, but I'm also a fan of both Gordon and Derrick's work. And I am the newish first time mother of a 15-year-old, excuse me, 15 years, no, 15-month-old son. And this book, it really hit me in the feels, as the young people say. So Gordon, you may not remember, but we've met a few times at some different library events. And as a librarian, in true librarian fashion, I keep this picture of the two of us
Oh, awesome.
just above my desk. And the funny thing about this picture is I'm actually expecting my own good thing in this picture, and I didn't even know it yet. So I usually don't like to take pictures. One of our great library staff persons, Everett Blackman, took that photo, and I love that he caught me glowing before I even knew that my own every good thing, Mr. Chancellor, was on his way. So the first time, Derrick, that I saw the book trailer for I Am Every Good Thing, I was scrolling Facebook like we do. And your words, it felt like this book had been written just for me and just for my son. And literally, this is the first thing that I ever pre-ordered ever in life, and it belongs to my little good thing. See, that's his little name.
Yeah.
So I was moved by the trailer, and then when I got it, oh my goodness, the pictures, the words, everything. Just again, I felt like you guys were talking to me, like and us. So my son went through a phase where he used to wear his bibs turned backward. He didn't like them. He would flip them backward. I say, "Oh, you're wearing your cape," and I open it and I see that picture, and I'm like, "Oh, they made this for me."
That's
And
right.
it's just beautiful. So having said all of that, maybe too much, Derrick, could you tell us a little bit about the origin story behind I Am Every Good Thing?
Sure. Shout out to Chancellor first of all.
Thank you.
There was two things that really sparked the creation of this book. I wrote it in 2018, like right in the middle of the popularity of Crown. Gordon and I were both on the road doing events together separately, and I had wrote a poem when Trayvon Martin was murdered, and I started the poem, but I didn't finish it. And then in 2014, Michael Brown was actually murdered on my birthday. Tamir Rice was murdered in the same year, and these murders of unarmed black boys by police officers just kept piling up. And one thing I noticed that there used to be a narrative, which was there still a narrative, and you could almost set your watch to it. After an unarmed black boy or black man is murdered, they always try to pull out any kind of negative stories that they can find on them. Maybe they go to their Instagram page and find some questionable pictures. Maybe the kid was suspended from school, and always place the blame on this child for being murdered. So I noticed that. And it really got to me because Gordon and I are both raising black boys, and we were both black boys at one point in time. And I wanted America to know how much we love and care about our sons, and how much energy we put into our boys, and how much energy we put into them, becoming not only productive citizens, but just good people and good men. And I don't think that the vast majority of America knows that. If you're not blessed enough to have a black boy in your life, you probably tend to go off of stereotypes. And I just want the world to know how much we love our boys. And then in 2018, the clothing company H&M came out with this international ad where they had a little black boy wearing a green hoodie that said "the coolest monkey in the jungle."
Mm-hmm.
That was the tipping point for me. I finished the poem, and I just wanted to fill it with all the good, like all the universal good things that I can possibly think of. Because when we think about those universal good things, we think about our boys. My eldest boy is 20. When I look at him, I still see him when he was 2, when he was 4. And I think about all the energy I put into him. Now he's an engineering major at North Carolina A&T, and they're always going to be your baby. I was going to say that before we got on air. You know what I mean? You're gonna always see him the way you see him now. You know what I mean? Even when he's a grown man. And yeah, it's just the love that we have for our boys. And I pinned that poem and I sent it to Gordon, and he did what he does best. Applied that magic to it. So here we are.
Wow, thank you. And speaking of your oldest, I know that behind you in the cover art for Crown, that's not your oldest. And I know that the cover art for I Am Every Good Thing is Gordon's son. Just wanted to kind of shout those guys out and kind of segue into Gordon's artwork. So I saw a comment from one of our viewers, Yolanda Darden, as you were reading, Derrick, and the swimming pool page came up. She said, "That's my favorite page." And I've seen a few of the interviews and talks that you all have given. And Gordon, I know that this is one that you like to talk about. So could you share with us just a little bit about that swimming pool page? And if Yolanda's still watching, as you continued to read, Derrick, she said, "No, wait, that's my favorite page," but I'm not sure which page that was. So maybe she'll tell us in the comments. But Gordon, could you please tell us a little bit about that swimming pool?
So that's my favorite page too, and it's actually behind us, so I will tilt up so you guys can see it. Oh, well, I don't have to do that now because it's on the screen. So like that's my favorite page too. I just really, with that one, I just wanted to bring that energy, and I felt like it was important to show Black kids swimming because, you know, swimming tends to be an issue in our community. And I really got to know what a big deal it was for Black kids to be swimming when my daughter was for a time on the Queen City Dolphins here in town. And so, you know, the gentleman who runs that team, Rodney, I don't know why I can't remember his last name right now, but he's really awesome. And he just makes sure, like, you know, even if you don't stay on the team and compete, he makes sure that you're going to know how to swim. You know what I mean? Because swimming is a life or death thing. And then it's this thing that we've been kept away from. And so if you look in that image, you're going to see like the field of view is kind of cocked to the side so that it looks like a really fun day. The colors are exaggerated and there's a lot of action in it. And then you have one kid who's a little bit older, but he's wearing floaties because I know that there are some of us that get older and don't swim, you know, so I wanted to make those kids feel comfortable. And I wanted to show the parents looking on because, you know, our kids are often portrayed as just going everywhere by themselves and like, you know, just running all over the place with nobody looking after them. But you see, they've got their people with them, you know, whether they're their parents or their community members. And that was just, for me, the most fun scene to illustrate.
Thank you so much.
I always notice something new every time I look at these images, man. I never really noticed that. I thought these were all boys waiting in line until you said that, man. I learned something new. We have tons of copies, and I always notice something new when I look at these images. He always puts little Easter eggs in every piece of work and every single page. I like it. I love that about his artwork.
You know, I really was honestly when my daughter was on the swim team, we would the pool. I don't think that pool isn't there anymore. There was a pool on Statesville Road that they would swim at outdoors, and I just remember what it was like being a parent. You know, watching the swim practices, all those little brothers and sisters in the pool, you know, getting their laps in, and it's just like there's like a way the sun shines off the water and everything. So I kept that in mind.
All right, that's wonderful. You spoke about community and the parents looking on, and you know, as you were talking about that swimming pool page, and I've got to admit, I can't tell you how many times I've read this book, and I only saw the parents for the first time today. I was drawn to the boy. He's not doing a cannonball, but he's coming off that diving board full force.
Yeah, he's coming in hot, right?
He was coming in hot, and he's got his belly out, and he is here for it. But tonight is the first time I've ever noticed the parents. So thank you so much for sharing. But you mentioned community, and I know that the love of the community is one of the things that Derrick has spoken to, and really just kind of assigning humanity to Black boys and Black boyhood. Could you speak to that just a little?
I think that that's very important. I feel like a lot of our kids, we're not seen as human. I actually had a similar conversation with a friend of mine about that. You know, we are often seen as something different. If we're good at something, it's never because we worked hard or studied at it. It's always because we are somehow gifted. And so like if we become the best at something, then they got to change the rules so that, you know, oh, you can't, like what happened to Simone Biles with
Literally just happened.
you know? And so like now they have to change the rule because it's never assumed that Simone Biles is just working harder than everybody else. It's assumed that she has some strange, unfair genetic advantage that we need to value the things that she is good at, you know, and you see it in sports and you see it in art. And I just wanted to show these people that our boys are like your boys. So half the time they're just doing regular things. And you see them in all different settings. You see them in the city, you see them in the country, you see them with their moms, you see them with their dads, you see them with their grandmother, you see them with their siblings. And you get all different body types and skin tones. And if you look hard, you might even feel like you see some different nationalities of Black boys, because I just feel like it is important that people be able to see our kids as human, and when our kids read these books, that they be able to see them.
Exactly. So, Derrick, I read that you used to work for Kansas City Public Library and you worked in outreach services. And I know that our outreach leader is actually watching right now. So shout out to outreach services. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the individuals with whom you worked while you were working in the outreach services? And then I'm going to bring it back to the book.
Yeah, it was a pretty odd, stage of my career. I started working there in 2011, and that was a year after my first middle grade novel came out, We Could Be Brothers. And at this point, I had maybe 8 books out, but the royalty checks weren't exactly rolling in, and I really wasn't making a lot of money, so I had to work, multiple jobs, and that was one of the jobs I ended up working. And I remember when I did the interview process, everyone knew of the Ruby and the Booker Boy series, and you had to go around to, every location. And I got the same question at every location. You're Derrick Barnes? I'm like, yeah. What are you doing working there? I'm like, I need the money. That's why I'm working, And I really needed that period, man. Between 2011 and 2014, we would go out every morning and we would go to daycare centers, elementary schools, high school, juvenile detention, and we would load up all of our books. And of course, we would do story times and we would do creative writing exercises. And I really needed that period in my life because, I always say God is always going to put you where you are supposed to be. If we leave it up to ourselves, we're always going to choose, the wrong option. So I needed those 3 years to get closer to my target audience, to get closer to the people who needed someone to look forward to seeing. You know what I mean? Like, we would go to the same school maybe like twice a week, and those kids look forward to seeing us. It was myself and another Black man. So here are 2 Black men coming to read to these kids every single week, or coming to do creative writing exercises for teenagers who have just come from a bad situation. And it was just a way of humbling me, I think, and again, just get me closer to my target audience. And I really enjoyed that period of my life, man. I also wrote like 30 some odd books during those 3 years. Wow. And staying up late, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, working on books nobody wanted. And man, then Crown happened in 2017. Just changed my life forever,
So I have a follow-up and a question. One of my colleagues who works here with me at the Allegra Westbrooks Regional Library here on Beatty's Ford Road, Zuri Davenport, actually introduced me to Crown. And, it was almost as if he wouldn't let it rest until I read that book. He was like, Alicia, you got to read it. This is great. It's wonderful. So Zuri, along with some of my other colleagues, you mentioned that you and another Black man did the outreach visits. Zuri and about 4 more of our colleagues who are all Black men. I asked them to read I Am Every Good Thing and then to share some perspectives on it. And 4 out of those 5 men all shared that they wished a book like I Am Every Good Thing existed for them as they were when they were young and during their coming of age. I've heard you in talks mentioning the Ezra Jack Keats Awards as being, the first time seeing Black boys in books. And that's the same thing that they were saying. And, they cover a wide span of ages. So, I just want to thank you both for creating these wonderful works, and not just Crown and I Am Every Good Thing, also The King of Kindergarten and The King of the Classroom and Letter Buck, and all these wonderful works that you all have created where Black children can see themselves. So that was my follow-up. But
I
my
wanted to say,
question,
since we just mentioned Crown, I want to give a shout out to Heads Up Barbershop on the Plaza, which is the barbershop in Crown, and Reggie, who owns the place, who is the barber in the book, who was nice enough to let us into his barbershop and to be the barber in the book and to give Silas an actual haircut as part of the as part of the book. And it's just so cool. So, like, Derrick and I are here. The barbershop is here. So if you are a Charlottean and you like children's book, this book is very Charlotte.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. So my question was, since you used to work in the library, and we know that this picture book, I think it's recommended ages 5 to 8 or something like that. Now, I'm a children's librarian, and I think you're never too old for story time. I think you're never too old for a good picture book. So what would you say to a parent or a child who said, well, this book is too young for me? Because I personally think that your husbands, your uncles, your cousins, your sons, your nephews, everybody should read this book. So what would you say to someone who says, oh, well, that's a picture book, that's too young for my son?
To me, each piece of art is, I think you focus on the content of each piece of art, whether it be a photograph, a poem, a sculpture. It's the content and it's the intent of the artist. My very first book was a early reader book, and my mother worked at a nursing home at the time, and she used to take my book out to the nursing home and read to the residents. And I always thought that was kind of odd, but she was explaining to me that the content of this early reader book that is meant for kids that are 4 or 5 years old, it's the content, it's the message in the book. And my first book was A Low Down Bad Day Blues, how this kid overcame adversity. It was raining all day. His favorite cap got thrown in the mud. His pet frog, ran away. But eventually the sun came out, and his mother washed his hat, and his frog came back. So both of these books, Crown and I Am Every Good Thing, are just full of aspirations, full of affirmations. And who doesn't need to be affirmed every now and then, and told that you are good enough, that you are every single good thing that is underneath the sun. And so, and the format is poetry, for both of them. So I think it's applicable for kids that are in kindergarten all the way up to high school students that are in, creative writing classes, AP creative writing classes. And Gordon and I talk about this all the time. He talks about that in regards to the artwork, how we sometimes feel like we have to dumb down our words, or, so the whole scope of the artwork. And I think Gordon, he can explain that much better than I can in regards to the artwork. But I just think we do kids a disservice by thinking they won't understand language, or they won't understand, certain, visuals or pieces of artwork.
I want to add to that. We don't look at Dr. Seuss the same way that we used to, because we know more about him. But that being said, people have been giving people who graduate from college, "Oh, the places you will go," for years. It is a children's book that we regularly give to college grads and people getting out of grad school. And when I read, when I first read the manuscript from I Am Every Good Thing, one, I knew it was instantly excellent, and two, it had that same kind of feeling, that uplifting, that you can do it feeling that you would get from a book like Oh, the Places You Will Go. And I was just like, oh, this is it. This is that book for our kids, you know? And so I would really encourage people to like take a wider view of what this book is capable of. And honestly, like I feel like I know there's something special about this book. Like this is the book that brought me and Derrick brought, that's the word, brought me and Derrick our second Kirkus Prize. And we're the only people to have won that prize twice in its history. And so, you know, there's something special about, I feel, about the way we do this thing together.
Oh, definitely.
Also, I want to add, you know, in regards to my experience at the library. So the other brother that I would go out with, he was younger than I was, and I still consider him a little brother because I don't have one. And we would get our picture books, you know, together to load up with us to go and do the story time all over the city. And we almost never found books with a Black boy that was, you know, the protagonist. And if we did, it was always the same. He was a runaway slave, or it was during the civil rights era. And there was one hard rule that I always gave him: don't ever pick up a book, because we're going to read to Black and brown children. Don't ever pick up a book that has a monkey on it. I went to we went to a school with third grade boys, and they had a young white female teacher, and she had these boys memorize that book. What was it, Six Little Monkeys Jumping on the Bed? And I explained to her why you should never introduce this book to these boys again, ever. So I never read monkey books. I can't stand monkey books because I understand the torrid history that we have here. And I've just made it a mission that every time we feature a African-American boy as the protagonist of any book, he's gonna be cocky, he's gonna have swagger, he's gonna have confidence, because that's what it's like to be a Black man, to be honest with you, in this country. You know what I'm saying? So I said I'm not gonna create these passive, docile Black male characters. All of our boys are gonna be the kind of boys that are leaders, that their parents are proud of. They're not gonna be self-deprecating like I see a lot of male characters, especially in you know, in middle grade. So I love this cover so much, man. This cover of Gabe. This boy could be from anywhere. He could be from Oakland. He can be from Johannesburg. He can be from Memphis with the oversized jeans and the sneakers, the backpack. But that look is like, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. You know, I want that kind of confidence in every single book we make.
Yeah, and both Gabriel and Silas, they exude confidence from those covers. They make you want to read those books. So I just wanted to transition back really quickly about this book, and we're going to be winding down, and we're going to take some questions from our audience. But you know, I went back and forth about, you know, am I drawn to the words? Am I drawn to the pictures? And it finally occurred to me that it doesn't have to be either or. And you all have done just a wonderful job of kind of marrying the two together. You know, I've read that you have known each other for a really long time and that you're actually friends, which for those who are watching, that doesn't usually happen in a picture book collaboration. You know, you don't necessarily have those relational ties together. But I wanted to ask you, Derrick, about some of the choices, the analogies that you use for these good things, like center of the cinnamon roll good. Like, we know how good that is. Like, nobody has to explain, but where did you come up with those particular analogies and why. And then I'm going to ask if we could see the boom bap page again, because again, you know, it's not the analogies that you necessarily hear, but you automatically know what you're talking about. So tell us about that.
Well, starting with Crown, Crown was really the first book where I felt free to really express myself, because I went years trying to get books sold to large houses where most of the time the gatekeepers do not look like us. So here I am in my 30s, 30 some odd year old black man writing from the African American experience, or my own African American experience. And I got so many manuscripts turned down. Well, Crown was published by Denise Milner Books, and she was an imprint of a company called Agate, which is outside Chicago. And we just had the freedom to almost do whatever we wanted to. And I think that's why Crown did so well, because it was so, authentic. I didn't have to explain to the editor what a fade was or what a do-rag was. You know what I mean? So we were able to not use slang, but use that very rich language that we all understand. And if you don't know what a do-rag or a fade is, that means you need to do your research. You know what I mean? So instead of making books and using language to appeal to someone else, we use our rich language and our rich colors and artwork, so that they could have to step their game up and you know what I mean, and do your research. So I made my mind up after Crown did well that I was not going to make artwork for the gatekeepers. I'm making artwork for Black and brown children, and indirectly make it for people who, again, like I was saying, people who may not be blessed enough to have Black or brown children in their immediate worlds. You know what I mean? So I wrote down a whole list of all the good things that everyone can think of that makes us feel good. And there are a few things that didn't even make it into the book, like the last fries at the bottom of the bag. You know, when you get fries from Burger King.
The last two fries at the bottom of the bag. That was my favorite analogy in the whole manuscript. And it didn't make it. I have a whole illustration of a kid like looking down into the French fry bag. Didn't book.
You need to auction that one off, man. You know,
somewhere.
Yeah. So I came up with like 30 or 40, universal good experiences or things that make you feel good. I also thought about my childhood, and we would go to this huge pool. It was in Swope Park in Kansas City, Missouri, and it was this huge pool that was all 3 feet, all the way across. And I just remember seeing all these beautiful Black children from all over the city jumping in this pool. And this pool used to be a segregated pool. Like only white folks could go to this pool between the 60s and the 80s. And in the 90s, when I was coming up, used to be a number of Black children out there. So, I thought about that. I thought about the center of a cinnamon roll. I thought about all my friends growing up that used to skateboard and who used to fall and have all these scrapes on their knees. And, the next day you see those scrapes bandaged up and they be right back on their skateboard. So I just thought about things that make us feel good, that make us smile, inside and out.
Thank you. And Gordon, can you tell us a little bit about the artwork here in this boom bap portrait?
So I wanted to portray a kid that was into music, and we went through a couple different iterations. Like I had one where he's fronting a funk band, which is kind of neat. I did a sketch with that one, and then finally I went with this one, and like that pose where he's kind of like this. That is that was inspired by you remember the rapper Cool C out of Philly? There's like Cool C and Steady B. Maybe everybody else here is too young. But I don't know, Glamorous Life, what his big song was, but there was just one where he was just walking like this, and it was so much swag. And so that is that pose. And I wanted to have him just like being like the center of attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really interested to see how this page is going to age, because
Yeah.
everybody is holding up cell phones, and I'm thinking in a few years that page is going to look old because of how tech goes,
Mm-hmm.
But I know that my daughter helped me out with that one, because she was like, "You got to put some rhinestones on the cell phones," because she was like, "It's probably going to be girls liking the picture, watching him." But that was just a lot of fun. A lot of color, a lot of movement. I like how it looks like he's kind of coming towards you with a wave, and the kid way up in the background DJing.
Yes.
If you've ever been into hip hop when you were young, like everybody had their roles. I know that Derrick used to rap. Like I used to love to dance. So like I would have a friend that was rapping, and like me and another friend would be dancing in the background. And then you always also had a friend that made music, and y'all kind of find each other.
Yeah. And boom bap is just an old hip hop term that, I guess it refers to the whole relationship between the kick and the snare drum during that whole golden era. I guess so between 86 and like 98, 95, the whole golden era. And I'm one of those old heads that I don't like anything new pretty much. I like all the hip hop from that era right there. And so yeah, that boom bap is pretty interesting. When I hear people read "I Am Every Good Thing," always wait to hear how they're gonna interpret that page, if they're gonna read it a certain way. I heard a brother sing it yesterday. He did a great job, man.
Well, I've read this several times during story time, and I read it pretty cool. I'm not going to do it for you. So, when the world reopens, maybe you can swing by story time so that you can hear Miss Alicia's interpretation of the boom bap. So,
Yeah.
As we're wrapping up, and we do have some questions, Tiffany Jewell is an author and educator, and she created a learning guide for this book. And she describes "I Am Every Good Thing" as an affirmation and a celebration of Black boy joy. And I could not agree more with that statement. But the book has also been described as a celebration of children everywhere, all children. Like I said, I read this book in story time, and I talk to the kids about how the book celebrates Black boys, but everybody is every good thing. So, was there any criticism about, choosing specifically to honor and celebrate Black boys? Or, do mothers of daughters say, when do we get our girl book? Like, can you tell us a little bit about that?
I know that my daughter has asked when she's going to get her girl book. I think Derrick might be frozen for a second, but you can't write every book. You can't do all the books at the same time, right? So you have to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And Derrick can speak more to this when he gets back. But I know that I believe he just wrote The Queen of Kindergarten, and I just wrote a book that is a girl book. I can't talk about it, but it's definitely a girl book. And also it is important too, because growing up, I read all these books where the characters did not look like me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still expected to learn from these characters and relate to these characters. So I think that is important for people who aren't Black to realize that you can read a book with a Black child as the protagonist, and your kids can learn and from him and relate to him.
Mm-hmm.
Your kid likes cinnamon rolls. Your kid likes to go swimming. So why can't your kid relate to this kid?
Exactly.
And why can't your kid read this book and feel good about himself just because he doesn't look like the main character?
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, when you get kids, a lot of times they will pick up that book and they will not be Black, and they'll be like, this kid is just like me. Or look at me on the cover. They're not thinking the same way that we are.
Right.
Or like their parents are. Let's put it more like that.
So the sentiment that you just shared about like the universality, like how children are just universal, it it really expresses an initiative that we're working on here at the library. We've just recently started a weekly Saturday story time that's called I Can Read Black Stories. And the I Am Every Good Thing is one of the books that was read on last Saturday. But the idea behind it is that we want to normalize Black kids in picture books and not just in the periphery. So every Saturday on Facebook Live, a diverse group of library staff, and trust me, everybody's not Black. You don't have to be Black to read Black stories. At 11 o'clock on Saturdays through Facebook Live, we are sharing just books from Derrick Barnes and Gordon C. James, Ezra Jack Keats, and just all sorts of things to kind of, show that universal experience, of just being kids and, being front and center and kind of being the star of the book. So you totally just nailed that sentiment. So we do have some questions, and there's a question from Victoria, and I'm going to give Derrick a chance to kind of get back in the groove of things. But Victoria asks, Gordon, what is your favorite drawing or painting in your portfolio and why? So doesn't necessarily have to be from this book.
In my whole portfolio, that is a tough call. But if you guys, my website is www.gordoncjames.com. I think that I'm really proud of my most recent fine art works, and they are more adult works, so like it's tasteful stuff. It's like, when you go into museums and you see those classical nudes, that's kind of what I tried to do, but bring a more contemporary feel to it. So like that is probably my most favorite work. But as of the work that I've done for children's books, I would say that my favorite illustration that I've ever done is probably this one with the swimming pool. And then there is a page where in Crown where Silas is getting his getting the hairs brushed off his neck with the brush, after his haircut. And I really love that one too. Those are a couple that I look at and I'm very proud of.
Thank you. So we have a comment from Tanya Lewis. She says, I bought this book and I am a 46-year-old woman and have no kids. The message spoke to me and I recommend it on my personal page. It's a message that resonates. So know that you're reaching everyone. It's not just Black boys, you're reaching everyone. So I'm still looking for some questions and comments that we want to share. And as I'm doing that, guys, if there is anything that I didn't ask that you were dying to tell us about, please go ahead and share that now. If there's something that you're working on that you can talk about a little bit, that would be great. But is there anything that I missed that you want to share with us?
Gordon, what are you working on right now?
All right. Well, I was going to let you go because you've been gone for a second. I am working on a book with Paula Young Shelton, who is Andrew Young's daughter, and it's called Just Like Jesse, and it's about Andrew Young's childhood and how he was inspired by Jesse Owens. And that's my first book in pastel, so that's coming. I'm working on a book with about Thurgood Marshall with help me out, Derrick. The queen of the children's book biography lives right up the way.
Carol Boston
Weatherford. Yes, thank you. Thank you. With Carol Boston Weatherford, I have a graphic novel that Derrick and I are working on together. And I actually have my first public art piece that'll be here in Concord. So I've done the drawing and I have to finish it. And it's going to be cut out of metal and installed on the greenway. So I'm really excited about that because I've never done any public art, and those are the things that jump right to the front of mind. But and the other thing was Letterbuck just won a Will Rogers medallion. So that on Saturday. And so that's really exciting for me and Vonda Michelle Nelson, who wrote Letterbuck.
All right. So, yes, Derrick.
Oh, I was saying, I don't have anything coming out this year other than I'm working on my first animation project, and it's going to be really big. I can't wait to announce who I'm actually working with, and I'm just so excited because that's what I want to do long term. I want to do animation, film. The Queen of Kindergarten comes out next year, illustrated by my big sis Vanessa Brantley Newton. I'm working on a middle grade novel right now called The Incredibly Human Henson Blaze. And I have a graphic novel also coming out next year. I'm working with just a true American legend, Mr. Tommy Smith, who was once the fastest man on the planet. And people know him mostly because of this iconic pose of wearing a gloved fist and standing up on the Olympic podium in the 1968 Olympics. So I'm doing his life story, and of course, Gordon and I are doing a book published by Kwame Alexander's Versify, and it's entitled "Do It for the People: Black Athletes, Activism, and Justice," where we profile 15 Black athletes in American history who actually protested for various reasons, but they took it upon themselves to risk it all pretty much. I mean, you see, Kaepernick has been blackballed from the NFL, and so to go back and talk about people like Kurt Flood and Muhammad Ali and Paul Robeson and all these great Black athletes who who were brave enough to challenge the system. So I have high aspirations for this book, and I'm going to send Gordon, some of the work tonight. I don't know if he's going to be able to get around to it, but I'm excited about that.
So we have another question from Christy Dooley. She wants to know, how did each of you end up in Charlotte? It's hard to find someone who's actually from here. I'm not from Charlotte. Nobody's from Charlotte. So how did you guys end up here?
Oh, well, so in 2014, I was working at the Kansas City Public Library. Our boys, we only had, we had 4 boys at the time, but my youngest son, he was only 2. My boys were at a charter school, and they had a Black superintendent, and they did everything they could to run this sister out of town. And the school was a high performing school. And when she left, they ended up bringing in like 2 or 3 superintendents. And at my wife's job, so my wife's a physician, they had new leadership there. She's from Los Angeles, so she always hated Kansas City, was looking for a reason to get out of there. So this was a perfect, a perfect chance for us to kind of get out of the middle of the country. Our eldest boy was 13, and she interviewed in different cities, Houston. We lived in New Orleans, Dallas, but we came to Charlotte, and I think I reached out to Gordon, before we came here, and we actually made 2 visits here to look at the schools, to look at the housing, and it was just a perfect fit for us. Like I said, my eldest boy, he was 13 when we got here. Now he's a sophomore at North Carolina A&T. Aggie pride, ain't that what y'all say?
That's what they say.
Carolina, the Aggie pride, yeah. That's where my money goes. It's hard for me to wear those Aggie T-shirts because I'm a Jackson State graduate, but I do like to wear all HBCU gear, and that's where my money goes. So every now and then you might see me in an Aggie T-shirt.
Well, your son's there. That's fair. I also went to an HBCU. I went to Winston-Salem State University, so it's all love. Gordon, did you want to tell us about how you arrived here in Charlotte?
I ended up here I ended up here because I did a residency at the McCall Center. I was in a show in Washington, D.C. for the Urban League, and a really nice woman from here bought one of my pieces and brought it to B.E. Noel at Noel Gallery when she had her gallery right on North Tryon Street to have it framed. And it was like a few months later, and Noel called me and was like, "Hi, I see your work. Would you like to do a residency at the McCall Center?" And once I got down here, I decided to stay. I have a cousin that lives in Huntersville, and she's like, "Why are you and your wife going to move back to DC and pay DC rent, or go back to New York and pay New York rent, when you can live down here? You can have a big, beautiful studio, and you won't be so stressed." And so that's how I ended up here.
Well, we are so happy to count you as our neighbors. There was another question, and the question was, are there any plans to have I Am Every Good Thing translated into other languages? Maybe French or Spanish or other languages?
That's the hope. That whole process is kind of tricky. We are getting it. It's already translated. It's in Europe. It was released this past week, and it's still the same title, but there are a few nuances we had to change. Small things like saying block. Like there's no block in London. They don't use that phrase. So, but these publishing companies that are in these various countries, they reach out to the publishing company and they offer to translate the book. We haven't had any offers yet in Spanish or French, but I think some may be on the horizon soon, hopefully.
You know what's interesting is that when Crown, we have seen pictures of people with Crown in France, holding up Crown, on the continent of Africa, holding up Crown. Crown has been the Mandarin, which Derrick is holding up now. And so like the books do tend to get around. And the interesting thing about this book is that there's no baseball page in it in the UK, because
there's no baseball.
Right? Like, and I made me think.
Wow.
So, and there's King of Kindergarten in French, and it made me think that, wow, the next time I do one of these books where it's about boys instead of about one boy, I was like, why did I not put someone playing soccer? It's only 90% of the rest of the world plays, everybody else plays soccer. And I left it out of the book, which is really bad for me. I'm of West Indian descent. I played soccer in high school, did not put a soccer page in the book.
Well, we won't hold it against you. So there is a young writer who's watching, and I'd like to finish with her question. She wants to know about getting published, but I'm going to kind of reframe her question just a little bit and ask Derrick, what encouragement or motivation could you share with a young writer? She says her name is Carrington. I imagine she might be using a parent's account to join us, and she's 11 years old.
Well, I always tell kids who are interested in becoming an author that they, just keep reading as much as you can. Read every single thing that you can get your hands on. When I started working at Hallmark Cards, I had never heard this phrase, but everyone was really keen on all the writers, finding their own voice, and a lot of that comes from just being a well-read person. Having enough life experiences, and again, like I said, read all the nonfiction, poetry, short stories, kind of glean from other people's writing styles to kind of meld it into your own. I'm a huge hip hop and jazz fan, and I love poetry from West Indian poets. Derrick Walcott is like my favorite poet, so I have a melding of different influences, and I really try to focus on my, I focus on my character dialogue, and I focus on the nonverbal, communication that characters have. So there's so much there's so much to learn, and I think it just comes with time. You know, once you start understanding that your voice is what's going to separate you from every other writer that's on the planet. Like if you have a book and there's no title on it, and they don't have your name on it, but when people open it up and they read that text and they can recognize that it's your voice, I mean, that's the whole goal. And I'm still shooting for that. I'm constantly trying to get better. I mean, if you're an artist and you're not trying to improve, then I think it's time to do something else. I want to constantly get better. You know, I'm a super competitive person, and I compete with myself every single day, and I compete with my peers, and I'm constantly trying to learn new devices and use new things that kind of meld into my style.
Alicia, can I ask Derrick a question? Because I kind of have a question for Derrick.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, so Derrick and I met at Hallmark Cards, right? And when you're there, they put you on all these different projects. So like for me, I was like, oil painting and doing watercolor and pen and ink and going on wood block and like, going off to do wood turning stuff. And I know that they made you write in a lot of different styles and meters and that kind of thing. Derrick, do you feel that having to work in so many different ways helped you to find your voice? Or do you wish you had just been writing the way you are? You know what I'm saying? Do you wish you had gone straight to your voice? Or do you feel like working in all those different styles like we had to back in the day helped you to better refine your voice?
Man, it helped me so much. Being a Hallmark was like being in grad school, really. And I think the most helpful thing that I earned that I learned from that phase in my writing career was to not become so attached to your work. We were able to sit in on the editorial process. So you'll be sitting there at the same table when people are just dogging your work, trashing it. I mean, balling up, pieces of paper with your writing on it. And so I learned to embrace the whole editorial process, to have different sets of eyes on my work, because you can fall in love with your writing. I also learned not to stop and start. Like I would write a few stanzas, or I would write a few paragraphs and then go back and self edit. But during that phase, I learned from so many other writers too. It's so important that you just let it all out, because writing is just a stream of emotions. You are kind of forecasting this whole scene and this interaction of characters, and there's all these senses, and so you just need to let it flow. But I used to find myself stopping and going back and reading and self-editing, so I stopped doing that. And so I learned so much from Hallmark Cards, just being there with other writers, people that have been there. Gordon knows people have been there for 20, 30 years, and yeah, the whole editorial process. You can't fall in love with your work. You gotta have a different set of eyes on it, and hopefully, a beautiful piece of work comes from it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that question, Gordon and Carrington. If you're still watching, I hope that you can take Derrick's advice. Read every day and then collaborate with others as you work to find your own voice. So we are at the top of the hour. I went back to the swimming pool page. One of my favorite lines is on that page. It says, "I am the smile forming on your face right now." And I just want to thank Derrick and Gordon for sharing with us tonight. Lots and lots of smiles have formed on my face tonight, and I hope that the same is true for everyone who's watching. Thank you, everyone, for supporting our Charlotte Mecklenburg Library programs. Please continue to explore our Black Lives Matter programs by visiting cmlibrary.org. And again, thank you, Derrick and Gordon, for spending an hour with us this evening to share about your wonderful, beautiful, every good thing. I am every good thing. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you all have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.